The massive alien ship floated in the darkness of space like a living mountain. Its surface rippled with veins of blue light that pulsed like a heartbeat. Admiral Kextar stood on the bridge, his 6 arms folded behind his back, as he watched the strange new vessels on his screens. "Report," he commanded in his deep, rumbling voice. "Sir, we have detected 5 primitive ships emerging from the 3rd planet of this system," his aide replied. "They appear to be made of crude metal and use chemical propulsion." Kextar's mandibles clicked in amusement. The Zephyrian Empire had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years. They had conquered over 500 worlds and subjugated countless species. Every ship in their fleet was grown, not built, from specially engineered organisms that could heal themselves and adapt to any threat. "Humans don't have ships like this," Kextar said, gesturing toward his own vessel. The bridge walls were alive, breathing softly as they monitored every system. "They are clearly a primitive species. Send the standard surrender demand." Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the New Horizon, staring at the massive alien fleet that had appeared without warning. His ship was humanity's pride and joy, the first vessel capable of traveling beyond the solar system. Now it looked like a toy compared to the enormous bioships facing them. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission," said Amy Brooks, his communications officer. She was young but capable, with short brown hair and steady hands despite the fear in her eyes. "Put it through," Morrison replied. The alien voice that filled the bridge was cold and mechanical, translated by their computers. "Primitive species of the 3rd planet. I am Admiral Kextar of the Zephyrian Empire. Your system now belongs to us. You will surrender immediately and prepare for processing. Resistance will result in your complete destruction." Morrison looked around his bridge. Lisa Carter, his chief engineer, was checking damage reports from their long journey. Peter Walsh worked at the navigation console, his face pale but determined. These were good people, the best humanity had to offer, and they deserved better than slavery. "Open a channel," Morrison said. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the human vessel New Horizon. We are explorers, not warriors. We request permission to return to our homeworld to discuss your terms with our leaders." There was a long pause before Kextar's voice returned. "You have 24 of your planet's rotations to decide. Surrender or die. There are no other options." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in silence. "Sir, what are we going to do?" Amy asked. Morrison studied the alien ships on his screen. They were beautiful in a terrifying way, clearly far more advanced than anything humanity possessed. But something about them bothered him. They looked organic, almost alive. "We're going to learn everything we can about these ships," he said. "Lisa, I want you to scan their energy signatures. Amy, record everything they transmit. Peter, plot courses back to Earth for all our ships." "Captain, with respect, we can't outrun those things," Peter said. "No, but we can think," Morrison replied. "They've conquered 500 worlds by being superior. Let's see what happens when they face something different." Dr. Kevin Anderson floated in the zero gravity of the New Horizon Science Lab, studying the data streaming in from their sensors. He was a xenobiologist, brought along to study any alien life they might encounter. Now, he was humanity's only expert on their potential conquerors. "These ships are incredible," he muttered to himself, adjusting his glasses as he examined the readings. "They're not just using biological components. They are biological components." Lisa Carter joined him, pulling herself along the handholds. "What do you mean?" "Look at these energy patterns," Kevin said, pointing to his screen. "The hull isn't just armor. It's skin. Those lights aren't just decoration. They're blood vessels, carrying nutrients throughout the ship. These vessels are literally alive." "That's impossible," Lisa said. "Not impossible, just very advanced." Kevin pulled up another display. "But here's the interesting part. All biological systems have weaknesses. They follow patterns, they have needs, they can get sick." Lisa studied the data. As an engineer, she understood systems and how they could fail. "You think we can find a way to hurt them?" "Maybe. But we need more time to study them." Meanwhile, on the Eternal Dominion, Admiral Kextar reviewed reports from his science officers. The human ships were even more primitive than first thought. They used controlled explosions for propulsion and crude electronics for navigation. Their hulls were simple metal plates welded together. How did such a backward species develop space? Travel? Asked Subcommander Velnash. Desperation, probably, Kextar replied. Their planet is overpopulated and polluted. They had to expand or die. He gestured dismissively at the human ships. It matters little. Tomorrow they will surrender, like all the others. But as the hours passed, the humans continued their strange behavior. Instead of panicking or attempting to flee, they maintained position and actively scanned the Zephyrian fleet. Their transmissions showed they were analyzing everything, learning. Sir, they're acting most unusually, Velnash reported. Previous species either surrendered immediately or attempted to escape. These humans seem to be studying us. Kextar's eyes narrowed. In 3,000 years of conquest, no primitive species had ever shown such curiosity in the face of certain death. It was either remarkable bravery or remarkable stupidity. Let them look, he said finally. What can they possibly learn in 24 hours that will save them? Back on the New Horizon, Morrison gathered his senior staff in the conference room. The walls displayed everything they had learned about the alien fleet. Report, Kevin, Morrison said. Their ships are living organisms, Captain. Incredibly advanced bioengineering. They can heal damage, adapt to threats, and grow stronger over time. It's why they've been so successful. Weaknesses? Morrison asked. All living things have vulnerabilities. These ships need nutrients. They follow biological patterns, and they can be overwhelmed if their systems are confused or damaged in the right way. Lisa leaned forward. I've been thinking about their energy signatures. If they're biological, they might be susceptible to certain frequencies that could disrupt their nervous systems. Like what? Amy asked. Electromagnetic pulses tuned to biological brainwaves. It wouldn't work on our ships because we're mechanical, but on them. Lisa paused. It might be like giving them a seizure. Morrison nodded slowly. How long would you need to modify our transmitters? 12 hours, maybe less if Peter helps with the calculations. Do it, Morrison ordered. Amy, I want you to prepare a message for Admiral Kextar. When he contacts us for our answer, I want to be ready. As the deadline approached, the crew of the New Horizon worked frantically to modify their systems. They knew they were probably going to die, but they were determined to give the aliens something to remember. On the Eternal Dominion, Kextar waited patiently for the humans to contact him with their surrender. He had given the same ultimatum, hundreds of times to hundreds of species. The answer was always the same. When the transmission came, however, Captain Morrison's words were unlike anything he had ever heard. Admiral Kextar, this is Captain Morrison. We have considered your offer carefully and we must respectfully decline. If you wish to test your ships against ours, we are ready. The bridge fell silent. In 3,000 years of imperial expansion, no primitive species had ever refused to surrender. Kextar stared at the screen in disbelief. They cannot be serious, Velnash whispered. But as Kextar looked at the small human ships maintaining their position despite being hopelessly outnumbered, he realized they were completely serious. These strange creatures were actually going to fight. For the first time in his long career, Admiral Kextar felt something he had never experienced before. A tiny flicker of uncertainty. The silence on the Eternal Dominion's bridge stretched for long moments after Captain Morrison's refusal. Admiral Kextar's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of deep confusion among his species. In 3 millennia of conquest, this had never happened. Sir, your orders? Subcommander Velnash asked quietly. Kextar's mandibles clicked as he considered. The humans had exactly 5 ships against his fleet of 30 bio-dreadnoughts. Their defiance was either the bravest thing he had ever witnessed or the most foolish. Prepare for attack formation, he commanded. We will give these humans a demonstration of imperial power. Meanwhile, on Earth, emergency sessions were taking place in every major capital. Admiral Helen Parker sat in the Pentagon's crisis room, surrounded by screens showing the standoff occurring millions of miles away. She was a veteran of humanity's small space navy, gray-haired and sharp-eyed, with more experience in void combat than any living human. "Options, people," she said to the room. General Robert Cruz leaned over the tactical display. He was a big man with scarred hands from his days as a Marine, now responsible for Earth's defense. "Our deep space fleet is 6 months away. The lunar bases have no ships that could reach them in time." "What about reinforcements from Mars?" asked Dr. Sarah Williams, the president's science advisor. 3 weeks minimum," Cruz replied. "Captain Morrison and his people are on their own." Admiral Parker studied the data streaming back from the New Horizon. "Jake Morrison is one of our best captains. If anyone can find a way through this, it's him." "Ma'am, with respect, 5 ships against 30? Cruz shook his head. "Those aliens have technology we can barely understand." "Maybe," Parker said, "but Jake has something they don't. He has human stubbornness." Back in space, Dr. Kevin Anderson floated in the science lab, his tablet filled with biological data about the Zephyrian ships. Lisa Carter worked beside him, running calculations on her engineering pad. "Kevin, look at this," Lisa said, pointing to her screen. "The energy patterns from their hulls. They're not random." Kevin studied the readings. "You're right. It's almost like a heartbeat, but more complex, like a neural network." "Exactly. And if it's a neural network, it has to follow certain rules. Biological brains can be overloaded if you hit them with the right stimulus." Amy Brooks joined them, pushing off from the doorway. "The captain wants an update. How much longer do you need?" 2 more hours, Lisa said. "Maybe 3. I'm modifying our communication array to broadcast on biological frequencies instead of mechanical ones. And I'm mapping their neural patterns," Kevin added. "If we can find the right frequency, we might be able to disrupt their ship's thinking." Amy nodded. "I'll tell the captain, but guys, hurry. The aliens are moving into attack position." On the bridge, Captain Morrison watched the Zephyrian fleet spread out in a perfect formation. Each bioship pulsed with that strange blue light, and he could see smaller craft moving between them like fish in a school. "Peter, how are our escape routes?" Morrison asked. Navigator Peter Walsh checked his instruments. "The aliens have us surrounded, Captain. If we try to run, they'll intercept us before we can build up speed." "Good," Morrison said, surprising. His crew. "Sir?" Amy asked. "If we run, we look weak. If we stay and fight, we look crazy. Either way, we don't look like what they expect." Morrison studied the alien formation. They're so confident they're not even bothering with defensive positions. Tony Mitchell's voice crackled over the communications from his fighter squadron. "Captain, my birds are ready to fly. Just give the word." Morrison considered. Tony was young but skilled, leading humanity's first deep space fighter squadron. His 6 small craft were no match for the alien ships, but they might provide a distraction. "Hold position, Tony. Wait for my signal." Admiral Kextar watched the human ships with growing irritation. They maintained their position without any apparent fear, and their small fighter craft were actually moving closer to his fleet. "The humans are either insane, or they know something we don't," Belnash observed. "What could they possibly know?" Kextar replied. "They've been in space for less than 50 years. We've been conquering worlds since before their species learned to write." But something about the human behavior nagged at him. Every species they had encountered followed predictable patterns when faced with superior force. They either fled, surrendered, or made desperate emotional attacks. The humans were doing none of these things. "Sir, we're detecting unusual energy signatures from their ships," reported the sensor operator. Kextar moved to the sensor station. The readings showed the human vessels were modifying their communication systems, but for what purpose? "Are they calling for help?" "No, sir. The energy patterns don't match any known communication protocols." Down in the New Horizons engineering section, Lisa Carter made final adjustments to the modified transmitter array. The work was delicate, requiring her to rewire systems never designed for biological frequencies. "How does it look?" Kevin asked, floating nearby with his tablet. It should work, Lisa said, wiping sweat from her forehead. But I won't know for sure until we test it. And if it doesn't work? Lisa looked at him seriously. Then we're probably going to die. Kevin nodded. At least we tried something new. Captain Morrison received the update from his engineering team just as the Zephyrian fleet finished its approach. The alien ships hung in space like predators, their hulls rippling with bioluminescent patterns. All ships, this is Morrison, he broadcast to the small human fleet. In 60 seconds, we're going to show these aliens something they've never seen before. Stay close, follow my lead, and remember that we're representing all of humanity today. The responses came back quickly. From the other 4 ships, Captain Ryan Torres of the Explorer, Captain Linda Gray of the Pioneer, Captain Matt Johnson of the Ranger, and Captain Susan Clark of the Pathfinder, all ready to follow Morrison into what would probably be their deaths. Amy, open a channel to the alien fleet, Morrison ordered. Channel open, sir. Morrison took a deep breath. Admiral Kextar, this is Captain Morrison. You wanted to see what human ships can do. We're about to show you. Kextar's response was filled with amusement. Captain Morrison, your ships are primitive, toys compared to our biotechnology. Surrender now and your deaths will be quick. Thank you for the offer, Morrison replied, but we'll pass. He closed the channel and turned to his crew. Lisa, are the modifications ready? Yes, sir. All ships are broadcasting on biological neural frequencies. Kevin, you have their pattern mapped? As well as I can without actually dissecting one of their ships, Morrison nodded. Amy signaled Tony's fighters to begin their attack run. All ships execute pattern chaos. What happened next confused every tactical computer in the Zephyrian fleet. Instead of attacking in formation or attempting to escape, the human ships began moving in completely random patterns. Their fighters zigzagged between the larger vessels while broadcasting strange energy signatures. What are they doing? Phil Nash asked, watching the tactical display. Admiral Kextar studied the human movements. There was no pattern, no strategy he could identify. It was like watching insects panic. They've lost their minds. All ships, open fire. End this quickly. But, as the Zephyrian bioships began their attack, something unexpected happened. The first dreadnought to fire suddenly stopped mid-assault, its hull flickering wildly. Then the second ship began spinning out of control. Report, Kextar demanded. Sir, our bio-neural networks are experiencing interference. The human ships are broadcasting something that's affecting our ship's nervous systems. Kextar stared at the tactical display as more of his ships began malfunctioning. Their perfect biotechnology, their greatest advantage, was being turned against them by these primitive humans. Impossible, he whispered. How could they know? But as he watched his supposedly invincible fleet struggle against an enemy they had dismissed as inferior, Admiral Kextar began to understand that he had seriously underestimated these strange creatures called humans. Captain Morrison watched with amazement as the alien ships began to falter. Lisa's modifications were working better than anyone had hoped. All ships concentrate fire on the largest vessel, he ordered. Let's see if we can give their admiral something to think about. The battle for humanity's future had truly begun. The Eternal Dominion shuddered as its bio-neural networks fought against the strange signals flooding its systems. Admiral Kextar gripped the command throne as alarms wailed throughout the ship. Around him, his crew worked frantically at stations that flickered between normal operation and complete chaos. Damage report, he roared over the noise. Sir, 17 ships are experiencing neural disruption, Subcommander Velnash called out, his own voice tight with panic. The bio-hulls are rejecting commands. Some vessels are attacking their own weapon systems. Kextar watched his tactical display with growing horror. The destroyer-class vessel Crimson Fang was spinning helplessly, its pilot tentacles wrapped around its own hull in confusion. The heavy cruiser Void Hunter had begun firing at empty space, its targeting systems completely scrambled. How is this possible? Kextar demanded. They're primitives. On the new horizon, Captain Morrison could barely believe what he was seeing. The massive alien fleet that had seemed so threatening minutes ago was now in complete disarray. Half, The ships were malfunctioning and the others seemed afraid to attack. "Lisa, how are the modifications holding up?" he asked. "Better than expected, Captain," Lisa Carter replied from the engineering station. "The alien bio-neural networks are more susceptible to disruption than Kevin predicted. It's like their ships are having seizures." Dr. Kevin Anderson floated at his science station, recording everything. "The biological components are designed to adapt and heal, but they can't adapt to something that attacks their nervous system directly. It's like poisoning someone's brain." "Tony, status on the fighter squadron?" Morrison called out. Commander Tony Mitchell's voice came through clearly despite the chaos around them. "We're dancing between the big boys, Captain. They're too confused to target us properly. 2 of my fighters are damaged, but we're still flying." Morrison nodded. "All ships maintain the neural disruption broadcasts and focus fire on their command vessel. If we can take out their leader, the rest might scatter." The human fleet moved in their chaotic pattern, avoiding the wild shots from the malfunctioning Zephyrian ships while concentrating their fire on the Eternal Dominion. Their weapons were primitive compared to the aliens, but they were hitting their target while the bioships couldn't hit anything. Admiral Kextar felt his ship rock under the human assault. The primitive kinetic weapons and energy beams shouldn't have been able to penetrate his vessel's bioarmor, but the neural disruption was preventing proper healing responses. Each hit left permanent damage. "All ships, fall back to defensive positions," he commanded. "We need to adapt to their attack method." But as his fleet tried to regroup, the humans did something completely unexpected. Instead of pressing their advantage, they suddenly changed tactics entirely. The neural disruption stopped and the human ships scattered in different directions. "What are they doing now?" Belnash asked. Before Kextar could answer, the humans revealed their new strategy. Captain Linda Gray's ship, the Pioneer, suddenly accelerated directly toward the alien formation while broadcasting a completely different signal. "Sir, they're transmitting some kind of virus into our communication networks," the sensor operator reported. This virus was different from the neural disruption. Instead of causing immediate chaos, it began slowly corrupting the bioship's decision-making processes. Ships that should have been healing themselves instead began attacking their own systems. Vessels that should have been coordinating attacks instead began drifting away from the formation. Dr. Kevin Anderson had spent hours during the standoff studying the Zephyrian biotechnology. While Lisa worked on the neural disruption, he had developed something even more insidious. A computer virus specifically designed to infect biological neural networks. "It's working," he reported to Captain Morrison. "The virus is spreading through their fleet communication system. Their ships are literally losing their minds." Commander Tony Mitchell saw an opportunity and took it. "Captain, 3 of their ships have completely stopped moving. Request permission to conduct close-range reconnaissance." "Granted, but be careful, Tony." Mitchell's fighter squadron swooped close to the disabled alien vessels. What they saw was both fascinating and terrifying. The bioships were still alive, but their surfaces rippled with confusion. Weapon ports opened and closed randomly. The hull patterns flickered in diseased spirals. "It's like they're having nightmares," Mitchell reported. Meanwhile, Admiral Kextar struggled to maintain control of his fleet. The humans had done something impossible. They had turned the Empire's greatest strength into its greatest weakness. The biotechnology that made Zephyrian ships superior to all others was now destroying them from within. "Sir, we must retreat," Belnash urged. "We're losing ships every minute." Kextar's pride warred with his tactical sense. The Zephyrian Empire had never retreated from primitives, but his fleet was being systematically destroyed by an enemy that should have been helpless. "How many ships are still combat effective?" he asked. 11, sir. And that number is dropping." Kextar made the hardest decision of his military career. "All ships emergency jump to rally point 7, we retreat." But the humans weren't finished. Captain Morrison had been saving his final surprise for exactly this moment. "All ships execute maneuver 7, he commanded. The human vessels suddenly changed course again, but this time they moved to block the aliens' escape routes. It was an incredibly risky move, putting their small ships directly in the path of vessels many times their size. "Captain, they're trying to jump away," Peter Walsh reported from navigation. Not if I can help it, Morrison replied. Amy, broadcast on all frequencies. Tell their admiral I want to talk. The transmission went out across space, reaching the Eternal Dominion just as its jump engines began to charge. Admiral Kextar, this is Captain Morrison. Before you leave, I think we should discuss terms. The alien admiral stared at his screen in disbelief. These humans, these primitives who shouldn't have been able to scratch his ships, were now offering him terms. The reversal was so complete it seemed like a nightmare. What terms, he found himself asking. Simple, Morrison replied. You leave our system immediately and never return. In exchange, we'll give you the cure for the virus that's eating your ship's brains. Kextar looked around his bridge. His crew was working frantically to contain the spreading corruption in their own ship's systems. Without a cure, his remaining vessels would eventually destroy themselves. You would cure our ships, he asked. After you leave and promise never to return, Morrison confirmed. I'm told the virus is specifically designed to target Zephyrian biotechnology. It won't affect other species, but it will eventually kill every bioship in your fleet. It was the most humiliating moment in Admiral Kextar's long career. He was being blackmailed by a species that had been in space for less than 50 years. Every instinct told him to refuse, to die fighting rather, than submit to primitives. But as he watched another of his ships begin attacking itself, he realized he had no choice. Very well, human. We accept your terms. Captain Morrison smiled grimly. Excellent. Begin your withdrawal, and we'll transmit the cure once you're outside our solar system. As the Zephyrian fleet limped away from Earth, their bio-ships flickering, with viral corruption, Admiral Kextar sent a priority message to Imperial High Command. The message was simple but would shake the foundations of the Empire. Human species more dangerous than anticipated. Recommend extreme caution. They fight differently. On the new horizon, the crew watched the alien fleet retreat with a mixture of relief and amazement. They had done the impossible. Defeated a superior enemy through cunning and determination. Captain, Amy Brooks said quietly, what happens when they come back with a bigger fleet? Morrison looked at the retreating alien ships and smiled. Then we'll have to get more creative. Dr. Kevin Anderson floated nearby, already planning. We learned a lot about their technology today. Next time we'll be ready. Lisa Carter nodded from her engineering station. And we'll have friends. Every species the Empire has conquered will want to know how we beat them. Captain Morrison realized his communications officer was right. The victory today was just the beginning. Humanity had announced itself to the galaxy in the most dramatic way possible by defeating the undefeatable. The real war was about to begin. The Imperial throne world of Zephyr Prime had not seen such chaos in 3,000 years. Supreme Admiral Zekathara stood in the vast command chamber, her 8 arms gesturing angrily as she read the reports flooding in from across the galaxy. The chamber's bio walls pulsed with agitated red patterns, reflecting the mood of the Empire's highest military commander. 63 worlds have reported uprising attempts, Counselor Nexavara announced, his voice tight with concern. The news of Kextar's defeat has spread faster than we can contain it. Supreme Admiral Zekathara's 4 eyes blazed with fury. She was the most decorated military officer in Imperial history, having personally overseen the conquest of over 100 worlds. The idea that a species of primitives could threaten the Empire was beyond her understanding. How many ships did we lose to these humans? She demanded. 19 destroyed, 34 severely damaged, reported Fleet Admiral Kexmara. Kextar managed to save only 11 ships in fighting condition, against 5 primitive vessels, Zekathara said slowly. 5 metal cans held together with primitive technology. Admiral Kextar himself stood before the council, his once proud posture now hunched with shame. His defeat had cost him 3 ranks and nearly his life. Only his long service record had saved him from execution. Supreme Admiral, the humans fight unlike any species we have encountered, he said. They don't follow established tactical patterns. They adapt their strategies constantly, making them impossible to predict. You're telling me that our bio-ships, perfected over millennia, were defeated by unpredictability? Zekathara's voice, dripped with disbelief. "They turned our greatest strength against us," Kextar replied. "Their virus infected our ship's neural networks, making our biotechnology attack itself. It was—" He paused, searching for words. "It was brilliant." "Counselor," Nexvara leaned forward, "what do you recommend?" "We must respond with overwhelming force," Zekthara declared. "I will lead the first armada personally. We'll bring 500 ships and wipe the human homeworld from existence." But Fleet Admiral Kexmara raised a cautionary hand. "Supreme Admiral, perhaps we should study these humans more carefully first. If they could defeat Kextar's fleet so easily, they might have other surprises waiting." "They're primitives," Zekthara roared. "Metal ships, chemical propulsion, electronic, computers. How dangerous can they be on Earth?" Admiral Helen Parker stood in the newly constructed war room deep beneath the Pentagon. The victory at first contact had bought humanity time, but everyone knew the aliens would return in greater numbers. Around her, the best military minds on the planet worked frantically to prepare for the inevitable retaliation. "Status report on Project Defiance," she commanded. General Robert Cruz stepped forward with a tablet full of data. "Construction of the defense fleet is ahead of schedule. We now have 42 ships designed specifically for combat against biotechnology. Weapons? Dr. Anderson's team has developed 17 different types of anti-biological warfare systems. Everything from neural viruses to electromagnetic weapons designed to disrupt organic computer systems." Admiral Parker nodded. "And Captain Morrison?" "Promoted to Commodore. He's overseeing training exercises with the new fleet. His experience fighting the aliens is invaluable." Meanwhile, in the orbital shipyards above Earth, Commodore Jake Morrison floated through the engineering sections of humanity's first true warship. The vessel was larger than the New Horizon, but still tiny compared to the alien bioships. However, it had been designed with one purpose: killing living vessels. "How's the neural cannon coming along?" Morrison asked Chief Engineer Lisa Carter. "Better than expected," Lisa replied, pulling herself along the handholds to join him. "We can now broadcast the bio-neural disruption signal at 10 times the strength of our first encounter. It should be able to affect ships from much greater distances." Dr. Kevin Anderson joined them, his tablet displaying biological data. "I've also developed new viral strains. The aliens might have found a way to defend against our first virus, but I doubt they can stop all 27 variants I've created." Morrison smiled grimly. "Good, because intelligence reports suggest they're coming back with a lot more ships." The construction around them was impressive. Human industry had been completely converted to military production. Where once they built exploration vessels, now they constructed warships. Where once they manufactured communication satellites, now they made weapons designed to fight living technology. Commander Tony Mitchell drifted over from the fighter bay. "Commodore, the new fighter squadrons are ready for combat trials. We've integrated the bioweapons into their systems." "How many pilots do we have trained?" Morrison asked. 230, sir. All volunteers, all aware they're probably going to die." Morrison nodded. That was humanity in a nutshell, willing to face impossible odds because someone had to do it. 3 months later, long-range sensors detected the approaching fleet. Supreme Admiral Zekthara had kept her promise, bringing the first armada, 500 of the Empire's most advanced bioships. The fleet was so large it blotted out stars as it approached the solar system. "My God," whispered Admiral Parker as she studied the tactical displays. "Look at the size of that thing." The lead ship alone was the size of a small moon. Its bioluminescent, hull rippling with weapon ports. Around it, hundreds of smaller vessels moved in perfect formation, their living hulls communicating through bioelectrical signals. "Ma'am, we're receiving a transmission," reported the communications officer. "Put it through." Supreme Admiral Zekthara's voice filled the command center, translated into English by their computers. "Primitive humans of the third planet. I am Supreme Admiral Zekthara of the First Armada. Your species has committed acts of war against the Galactic Empire. Prepare for judgment." Admiral Parker took the microphone. This is Admiral Helen Parker of the Human Defense Force. You are entering our sovereign territory. Leave immediately, or face the consequences. Zekthara's laughter echoed through the speakers. You defeated one small fleet through trickery and luck. We have brought 500 ships. Your pathetic metal toys cannot stand against the might of the Empire. We'll see about that, Parker replied and closed the channel. At Proxima Station, Humanity's forward outpost, Commodore Morrison prepared his fleet for battle. He had 60 ships under his command, each one designed specifically to fight biotechnology. They were outnumbered 8-1, but Morrison had learned something important from their first encounter. In space combat, creativity mattered more than numbers. All ships, this is Morrison, he broadcast to his fleet. The aliens are expecting us to fight like they do in formation, following predictable patterns. Instead, we're going to show them what human chaos really looks like. The plan was complex, but simple in concept. Instead of meeting the alien fleet head-on, the human ships would scatter across the solar system, striking from unexpected angles and disappearing before the aliens could respond. They would use the asteroid belt for cover, hide behind planets, and attack only when they had the advantage. Remember, Morrison continued, we're not trying to destroy their entire fleet. We just need to hurt them badly enough that they go home and think twice about coming back. As the massive alien armada entered the solar system, they found something they didn't expect. Empty space. The human fleet was nowhere to be seen. Where are they? Zekthara demanded from the bridge of her flagship. Unknown, Supreme Admiral. Our sensors detect no human vessels in the immediate area. They're hiding, she said with disgust. Cowards. Begin systematic search patterns, find them, and destroy them. But as the alien fleet spread out to search, the humans struck. Captain. Linda Gray's ship emerged from behind an asteroid, fired a full spread of neural disruptors at a biocruiser, and disappeared back into the asteroid field before the aliens could respond. The attacked ship began spinning helplessly, its bio-neural network scrambled. Contact, Zekthara ordered. All ships converge on that position. But when her fleet reached the asteroid where the attack had originated, they found only empty space. The humans had vanished like ghosts. Then Commander Tony Mitchell's fighter squadron struck from another direction, emerging from behind one of Jupiter's moons to attack a group of destroyers. Their bioviral weapons infected 3 ships before the fighters scattered in all directions. This is impossible, Zekthara raged. They're primitives. How can they be everywhere and nowhere? Admiral Kextar, serving as an advisor after his demotion, spoke quietly. Supreme Admiral, I tried to warn High Command. The humans don't fight like other species. They're unpredictable. They're cowards, hiding behind rocks and running from real combat. No, Kextar said. They're smart, and that makes them far more dangerous than any warrior species we've ever fought. As the day wore on, the pattern continued. Human ships would appear, strike quickly, and vanish. The mighty First Armada found themselves chasing shadows while their bioships fell victim to weapons they couldn't defend against. Supreme Admiral Zekthara was about to learn the same lesson that Admiral Kextar had learned. Humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their technology, it was their refusal to follow the rules. The battle for Proxima Station had been raging for 18 hours. Supreme Admiral Zekthara stood on her flagship's bridge, watching her mighty First Armada being torn apart by an enemy that refused to fight properly. Her bioships, designed to dominate conventional space battles, struggled against human tactics that made no tactical sense. Status report, she demanded, her 4 eyes glowing with frustrated rage. 87 ships lost, 143 severely damaged, reported her tactical officer. The humans continued to strike from multiple directions simultaneously. On the tactical display, the human fleet appeared and disappeared like flickering lights. Captain Susan Clark's ship would emerge from behind Mars, launch a devastating bioviral attack, then vanish before the alien response could reach her. Commander Tony Mitchell's fighters swarmed through the asteroid belt, using the rocks as shields while they picked off isolated alien vessels. They're like insects, Zekthara snarled, buzzing around, stinging, then running away. But the humans were paying a price for their aggressive tactics. Commodore Morrison stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the damage reports stream. In 28 ships destroyed, 15 more badly damaged. They were inflicting serious damage on the alien fleet, but they couldn't keep up these losses much longer. "Sir, Captain Gray reports her ship is dead in space," Amy Brooks announced from the communication station. "Life support failing." Morrison closed his eyes briefly. Linda Gray had been one of his closest friends since the academy. "Any ships in position to assist?" "Negative, sir. The alien fleet is closing on her position." Morrison made a hard decision. "Signal Captain Gray. Tell her to activate the neural cascade." The neural cascade was Dr. Kevin Anderson's latest and most dangerous creation. It would turn a dying ship's entire computer system into a massive bioweapon, creating a viral signal so powerful it could infect any bioship within 1,000 kilometers. The only problem was that it would kill everyone aboard the transmitting vessel. "Sir, that's a suicide mission," Amy said quietly. "I know," Morrison replied, "but Linda understands the stakes." Captain Linda Gray received the message aboard her crippled ship, the Pioneer. Her bridge was dark except for emergency lighting, and she could hear the hull creaking as it slowly came apart. Around her, her remaining crew worked frantically to keep life support running. "Captain, we have the neural cascade ready," reported her engineering officer. "But sir, once we activate it—" "I know, Lieutenant," Gray said calmly. "Send the activation code to all other ships. When we go, we're taking as many of these aliens with us as possible." The Pioneer's sacrifice created a massive dead zone in the alien formation. 30 bioships suddenly found their neural networks completely scrambled, turning them into floating hulks. But more importantly, it showed Supreme Admiral Zekthara something that chilled her to her core. These humans were willing to die to win. "They're fanatics," she whispered, watching the expanding field of disabled ships. Admiral Kextar shook his head. "No, Supreme Admiral. They're protecting their home. That makes them more dangerous than any fanatic." The turning point came when Dr. Kevin Anderson implemented his master plan. For hours he had been studying the bioelectrical signals that the alien ships used to communicate with each other. Their organic nature meant they were essentially one giant organism when they worked together. "Commodore Morrison," he called from his science station, "I think I can turn their entire fleet against itself." "Explain," Morrison ordered. "Their ships communicate through bioelectrical signals, like neurons in a brain. If I can introduce the right virus into their communication network, I can make them think some of their own ships are enemies." It was a desperate gamble, but Morrison was running out of options. "Do it." Anderson launched his virus through a captured alien communication pod that Tony Mitchell's fighters had retrieved from a destroyed bioship. The virus spread through the Zephyrian fleet's communication network like wildfire, corrupting the signals that allowed the ships to recognize friend from foe. Within minutes, the results were visible. Bioships began attacking other bioships, their corrupted systems identifying their allies as threats. The perfect formation of the First Armada dissolved into chaos as vessels turned on each other. "What's happening?" Zekthara demanded as her own sensors showed friendly ships firing on each other. "The humans have infected our communication network," her technical officer reported. "Our ships can't tell friend from foe. Cut all communications. Operate independently." But the damage was done. Without communication, the bioships couldn't coordinate their attacks or movements. The humans immediately pressed their advantage, striking at isolated vessels that could no longer call for help. Commander Tony Mitchell led his fighters in a desperate assault on the alien flagship itself. The massive bioship was protected by layers of smaller vessels, but the communication breakdown had scattered its defenders. "This is crazy," Mitchell muttered as he guided his fighter through the alien formation. "We're attacking something the size of a small moon." His fighters carried Anderson's latest creation, a virus specifically designed to target command and control systems. If they could infect the flagship's neural networks, they might be able to cripple the entire fleet's leadership. The attack was a success, but it came at a terrible cost. Mitchell's fighter took a direct hit from the flagship's bioweapons, and he barely had time to transmit the viral payload before his ship disintegrated around him. "Tony's gone," Amy reported quietly to Morrison. Morrison felt the loss like a physical blow, but he couldn't afford to grieve yet. The virus was spreading through the alien flagship, and he could see the massive vessel beginning to malfunction. Supreme Admiral Zekthara felt her ship shuddering as its neural networks fought against the human virus. Around her, control stations flickered and died as the infection spread through the vessel's organic systems. "Supreme Admiral, we must evacuate," urged her tactical officer. "The ship's bio-brain is dying." Zekthara stared at the tactical display, watching her once mighty armada tear itself apart. In her 3,000-year career, she had never faced an enemy like these humans. They fought with weapons that turned strength into weakness, used tactics that made no sense, and showed a willingness to sacrifice themselves that was both admirable and terrifying. "Signal the fleet," she said finally. "All ships emergency, retreat to Imperial space." But the humans weren't finished. Commodore Morrison had been saving his final surprise for exactly this moment. As the alien fleet tried to escape, human ships emerged from every hiding place in the solar system, blocking the retreat routes. "Admiral Zekthara," Morrison broadcast on all frequencies. "Before you leave, I believe we should discuss terms." The irony wasn't lost on the alien commander. Once again, the Zephyrian Empire found itself negotiating with primitives. But with over half her fleet destroyed or disabled, she had little choice. "What do you want, human?" "Simple," Morrison replied. "Your empire leaves human space permanently. You broadcast a message to all your subject species explaining how a primitive species defeated your advanced technology, and you provide us with star charts showing the location of every imperial world." "You ask for the impossible," Zekthara protested. "The Empire will never agree to such terms." "Then your ships will never leave this system," Morrison said calmly. "We've developed 43 different bioweapons specifically designed to kill your technology. Your choice: agree to our terms, or watch your entire fleet die slowly." As if to emphasize his point, another wave of disabled bioships drifted past the flagship, their hulls flickering with viral infections. Supreme Admiral Zekthara made the hardest decision of her life. "We agree to your terms." The transmission went out across the galaxy within hours. The most powerful fleet in Imperial history had been defeated by a species that had barely learned to travel between stars. The message was simple but devastating. The humans have weapons that can destroy biotechnology. Approach with extreme caution. 6 months later, Admiral Helen Parker stood in the Oval Office, briefing the President on humanity's new position in the galaxy. "The Empire is fracturing," she reported. 17 worlds have declared independence using modified versions of our bioweapons. The Zephyrians are fighting rebellions on 36 different fronts." "And us?" the President asked. "We're building alliances. Every species that the Empire oppressed wants to know how we beat them. We're sharing our technology in exchange for resources and military cooperation." Meanwhile, Commodore Morrison had been promoted to Admiral and given command of humanity's expanding fleet. He stood on the bridge of his new flagship, watching construction of humanity's first star base in another solar system. "Sir, we're receiving messages from 12 different species requesting help with their independence movements," Amy Brooks reported. She had been promoted to commander and served as his intelligence officer. "And our response?" Morrison asked. "We help them," said Dr. Kevin Anderson, now head of humanity's bioweapons research program. "Every species we free is another ally against the Empire." Lisa Carter, now chief of naval engineering, looked up from her reports. "The new ships are ready, Admiral. We now have technology that can defeat any bioship the Empire can send against us." "Morris,"